So, I've been thinking about, as I was coming home today, seeing some more posts from friends on Facebook, social media, the America First crowd and stuff like that. And I've been trying to get them to engage me on my argument that I think is compelling as to why we should be um, involved in the Iranian crisis and the Middle Eastern stuff in general. And I can't really get anybody to want to engage because I don't really know why. I don't. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that I don't quite often reply to a lot of the stuff that they post. I feel like maybe a lot of us are just, we're afraid to engage each other, maybe to destroy friendships and stuff, So we're just kind of like praying, well, maybe one day I just keep posting my stuff, he'll come over to my side. That could be it, and that's definitely not productive. And so if I'm engaging in that, then I'm probably being very hypocritical. Um, but that being said, I'm listening to so much of the America First going, this is Iraq 2.0 and whatever, and getting involved in foreign affairs and blah 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 blah. And I kind of like, how can I really express where I'm at right now? Because I'm in such a weird place about all of this. I'm not like, I got my gripes with MAGA, I got my gripes with America First. And it's a strange place to be. It really, really is. And I think of myself as America First. But I think a lot of the people in America First are incredibly unstable, a little bit unhinged. And I don't know if that's just like, maybe that's a weakness in me, because I try to think through things. I don't like to just like read something new and cool and interesting and it agrees with my point, and therefore I'm just going to go spout it off all over the place. I don't do that. Typically I don't. I want to like digest it. I want to think about it. I want to reflect on what I just learned and what it means. And we're just kind of a country that just doesn't, I don't know, just doesn't seem to do that kind of stuff. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what it shows about us as a society. If it just shows that we're chronically online, and we don't know how to sit and just kind of think things through. I don't know. But I guess what I'll say is, I'll say this. Today I saw a post from a Facebook friend he posted this thing of Charlie Kirk on the PDP podcast. Well, obviously when Charlie was alive. And Charlie's talking about the history of the Iran-US relationship, and he's posting this as if it's some kind of like proof that this is why we should not be engaged in the Iranian thing. And I'm like looking at it and just going, well, I mean, he said this is what's really going on. We reap what we sow. I don't think that's applicable. I don't think that's what's going on. Look, do I think that we behaved well? When we tried to overthrow a government that was not one of our puppet leaders? Sure. But I guess my thing with that right now is like it's like, I wonder about some of these people who post stuff like this. I'm like, have you, like, when did you learn about this? Like, when did you learn about it? Is this your first time learning about this? I've known about this for a while. Because, like I said, I love studying history. And for me, what I want to do, I want to get to the root of a problem. because I think when you get to the root of a problem, that's how you get perspective on and how to fix the problem or to best address the problem. And I had learned about the Iranian crisis about a year ago. I dove into the history about it. Like, what's going on with the Iranian thing anyway? What's the deal behind this? I had my opinion back then, but my opinions sort of have shifted. Because I guess, I don't know, I just think I've just gained perspective. I've just, that just kind of make me go, maybe I was being a little hot-headed and a little short-sighted. And, you can see the argument for the other side, basically, is kind of where I ended up. And now I'm kind of on that other side. But my thing is like with the whole the whole history of Iran. I'm like, what does that have to do with right now? Like, it doesn't. It's just it doesn't really have any much to do with it. Like, the America First guys. You guys are just proving yourselves more and more and more, just being more like idealists than you are being realistic about the situation we are in, the reality of where we're at. No foreign wars, no foreign wars. Let's just be an isolationist country. Let's not care. Like, why do we care what's happening on the other side of the world? I'm speaking as a guy who's got a "Don't Tread on Me" flag over there. Like I said in my last video, I have to make some corrections on that, by the way, and I'll try to remember to do that here. But I used to be all that libertarian stuff, and I look back on that. I'm like, man, there was a lot of things I didn't know back then. There was a lot of things I didn't know. It's not as simple as just pulling all our guys out. And like I wanted to show in that video, the case I make is that America First is intervention in Iran. Because it's the oil. See, and this is where my frustration with the Trump administration comes in, because I get really tired of hearing them constantly say, we can't allow Iran to have rockets, we can't allow them to have nukes. I'm not saying that there's no truth to that. I think there is truth to that, but you're not convincing anybody with that kind of stuff. Just be upfront and honest about what it is. It's not just the rockets. It's not just regime change. Those are part of it, but that's not the only thing that it is. It is the strategic need to make sure that one of the most important resources in the global economy does not fall into the hands of our enemies. That's why. Like I said, I've tried to engage many of my America First friends who hate what we're doing in Iran right now. I think all that because they think all it is. This is just us getting involved in foreign wars for Israel. And this is where I got to make the correction, by the way. I should do it right now while it's on my mind. So I kind of went after Mark Dice on my last video, and not that he's going to see this, but I should just make the correction anyway. I claim that there doesn't seem to be any evidence that Israel has anything to do with this, and it turns out there does. But does that nullify the point that I was making? I don't think so. I think my point still stands. We still need to maintain a powerful presence in the Middle East to make sure the oil flows and that we don't let China or Russia gain any significant influence over that oil. And Iran being very sketchy with us makes our people nervous. That's the reality of it, guys. That's just the reality. I know a lot of you guys would rather just go, it'd just be so much simpler if we can just pull our guys out and just get home. And see, that's the problem. You're thinking of let's just make it simple. It's just not simple. It just isn't. And that's why I'm saying you guys are just idealists. You're not realists. The ideal scenario is a simple one, a very simple solution. But that's not realistic. It's just not. You're in complete total denial of so many elements that are part of this. So many factors that have to be put into the equation. You just don't want to think about any of those things. Because you and we are just Americans. Life is fairly simple for us. like I said, most of our problems can be solved with phone calls to one person or another, a text message or an email. Usually most of our problems can be solved with that without any geopolitical ramifications. But when you're running countries, that's not the case. It's a totally different situation. Completely different situation. It is not that simple. It just isn't. And that's what I've come to learn. As I've studied history, as I've grown, learned more about history, and I've just come to, it's just given me certain perspectives. And I want to, see, my dad was talking to me about Megyn Kelly and her take, and he's telling me something about Megyn Kelly about now she's starting to talk about World War II, that World War II was a mistake, we shouldn't have gone into World War II, and I'm listening to this and I'm just going, again, I know what Megyn Kelly's talking about. I've read Pat Buchanan's book, I've read all that stuff, I get the argument, and in many ways I'm still sympathetic towards it. I really, really am. When I first learned about this stuff, I was absolutely like, dude, this changed the way I see World War II. It was a horrible idea. It was stupid. It could have been avoided. It should never have happened, blah, blah, blah. And I still believe that World War II was a horrible tragedy, could have been avoided. But see, I think it's naive to say that in 1939, I almost said 89, but 1939, I think it's naive to say that the Allies couldn't have, or could have still just decided to leave Hitler alone. I just don't think that was, because we can talk about what we wanted them to do, what they should have done with the hindsight 2020, and I think that's absolutely valid. We can argue about that, and I do want to argue about that. But that's why I would say the opportunity to prevent World War II was not in 1939. It was in 1936. That's when it was, when Hitler went in to reoccupy the Rhineland. That was the moment to do it, and the French didn't. After that moment, World War II is pretty much inevitable. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. Within 10 years, tops. It's going to happen. And it will be a necessary war. It will be a necessary war because, in a paradoxical sense, it was unnecessary. Because it could have been stopped way back in 1936. But they missed their chance. They missed their opportunity because the French were so incredibly afraid of the outbreak of another world war. They were terrified of it. Just didn't want that to happen again. They probably knew we'll still win, but at what cost? That's kind of what they were thinking. And so they never confronted Hitler in 1936. I forget exactly which month. It was somewhere in spring, summerish time when he did that. But, there's another thing too. I remember talking to some of my friends at church a couple weeks ago about this. And they couldn't even believe this. I could see it in their eyes when we were talking about some of the World War II history or whatever. They were kind of shocked when I said, Germany actually, the French could have beaten Germany in World War II. They actually could have beat them. And they were kind of like, I don't know. Look, I'm telling you, and I'm saying this because, my dad, he mentioned this when he was talking about Megyn Kelly, saying, well, we shouldn't have gone to World War II. My dad was kind of like, it just does the people of his generation, because we believe, guys, the big problem right now, this is the reason why I'm talking about this. The big problem with our society right now, we believe so many distortions and lies about history, things that are just not true. Maybe lies is a little bit strong, but there's a lot of things that we believe about history that aren't true, but are actually not true at all. The German Kaiser in World War I, he was trying to take over the world. It's not true at all. That's just false. World War I was all Germany's fault. Not true. It's false. That is not just, no, that's not true at all. Hitler was the most evil man ever to live. No, he wasn't. He was not the most evil person in the world who's ever existed. Not even in his own generation. The worst guy was farther to the east. That guy was much, much worse, much more dangerous. The fact that the Cold War happened kind of proves it. But the other lie is that Hitler, like my dad said, I can't believe Megyn Kelly's saying this, because doesn't she realize if we didn't fight World War II, then she'd probably be speaking German? And I heard that and I'm just like, that's probably not true. No way. That just would never happen. And the reason why is because we still believe today propaganda. That line, if it wasn't for the Allies, whatever, we'd all be speaking German right now. Like that line comes from propaganda. I believe it's from Churchill. Churchill was really good at propaganda. he exacerbated. Had a Candace Owens moment. Another one right there. Exacerbated the actual fighting capabilities of the Germans. And I get it, like, in wartime, you've got to get your people geared up and ready to fight. That's what propaganda is all about. Everybody does it. We do it. Everybody does it. But the reality is that was propaganda. It's actually not true. The German army, the reason why they won, there's only a couple of reasons why they won. Okay, they beat France that fast in World War II. One of the reasons is because French intelligence was terrible. They were approaching it as a World War I repeat, the Maginot Line, all that stuff like that. And two, they were certain, based on what they did have, that Germany was just going to do the Schlieffen Plan again. Three, and I think this is the most important part, French morale was just bad. It was just bad because, like I said, they were terrified of another world war. They didn't want to do this again. And when war was declared, here they were again, same old, back to just blowing each other up in trenches, just a fruitless war, whatever, we're gonna have to do this again, war of attrition, blah, blah, blah. They were so demoralized. They lost the will to fight. And when the Panzers and the Blitzkrieg, not the Blitzkrieg, but the Blitzkrieg was coming up through the Ardennes forest and just completely catching them by surprise, the French just collapsed. They just collapsed. They could have actually, if they really just put their heart and soul into it, they could have fended off Hitler's army. I absolutely believe they could have. And it wouldn't have been terribly difficult. Especially because the whole, Heinz Guderian, the whole concept of Blitzkrieg was sort of his idea. Concentrating your panzers into a single fighting unit, rather than kind of having them split up and support the infantry, like, one tank for each battalion, kind of thing like that. Instead, he just takes the tanks, removes them from the battalions, and just makes entire tank divisions. That's where tank divisions, stuff like that comes from. It comes from the Germans in World War II. There's a big flaw with the whole thing, though, is because the panzers move so fast. What people don't realize, the German army was actually very much not mechanized. It was poorly mechanized. The British and the French arguably were much better mechanized than the German army, because the German infantry still moved by horses. Their artillery units, all that stuff, their supplies was still moved primarily by horses. It was just the panzers that were, modernized, basically. And that created, as the panzers were rolling, huge gaps in their lines. So if the French really put their minds to it, they could have launched a coordinated effort to completely cut the panzers off, surround them, destroy them, and it would have been over. But the problem is the French were just so incredibly demoralized that even when they actually attempted that kind of thing, it was kind of like piecemeal. Some of them just kind of hesitated. They didn't want to. They were just afraid. They just kind of, they were. You are often beat in your mind much sooner than you are in reality, like when the actual physical defeat happens. Most of the defeat starts in the mind. And that's what happened with the French. And that's why they caved so quickly, all the way up to the highest levels. That's really it. They were fully capable. They had more forces than the Germans. They were fully capable of taking on the German army. Morale was just terrible, and they collapsed. But even more so, after that surrender, Hitler was finished by the time he started attacking Britain in the Battle of Britain. Again, a lot of the documentaries I've watched would set it up as though Britain was so close to collapse that they were barely hanging on, and it was only a matter of time, and somehow they miraculously pulled through. These documentaries, guys, they do stuff like this because the idea is propaganda again, is to romanticize the whole thing, to almost turn it into a movie because it's more entertaining and it makes it much more interesting. But the reality, guys, the reality is none of that's actually true. The Luftwaffe was getting their butts handed to them in the Battle of Britain. The British had radar. They saw every single one of Germany's attacks coming long before it came. They were always ready to take them. The RAF fighters, they matched the Luftwaffe. And the RAF fighters, when they lose fighters, they could replace them because, they're constant inflow of new fighters, and they're building planes much faster than the Germans. The Germans, on the other hand, they're losing fighters. They're some of their best fighters in the Battle of Britain, as well as planes. So, and they can't replace those as fast as Britain can. Britain is far outpacing the Germans in replacing losses. Germany is hemorrhaging planes and pilots in the Battle of Britain. They get nowhere near the ideal scenario to invade the British Isles. Nowhere near it. They just got slaughtered pretty much in the Battle of Britain. And I'm telling you, look this up. I actually looked this stuff up. It's true. It's true. And the reason why I say that's when Hitler was done, I say, well, wait a minute, Chase, the war went on longer than that. Yes, it does. But see, here's the thing. Like I said, defeat sometimes comes long before the obvious moment of defeat. Like I said, Hitler's forces, the Luftwaffe, they're hemorrhaging planes, they're hemorrhaging their best pilots. By the time they just give up on Operation Sea Lion, they just turn east. That's so many pilots, so many casualties they can't replace in time. They're not ready to face the Russians. I mean, that's only one of the elements of one of the reasons why they're not. There are many other reasons why they weren't ready, but that's one of the crucial elements of why they weren't truly ready to face the Russians. And they were able to push a little bit into Russia. They caught them by surprise, and continuous blitz maneuvers and stuff like that, and surrounding Russian forces and causing them to surrender by the thousands and thousands and thousands. But that eventually caught up to them. The fact that the absolutely disastrous campaign in the West against Britain was going to catch up to him. Caught up to him a couple years later. So the idea that Hitler was anywhere near capable of just getting within 100 or so miles of the U.S. eastern coast is insane. It just would never have happened. There was no way he was beating Britain. There was no way Hitler was beating Britain in World War II. Just not going to happen. Let alone Russia. I'm telling you guys, if you just look some of this stuff up, it'll bring some clarity. But the point there is that when you learn history, like when you actually really take the time to study it, I think it provides a lot of perspective. It really helps you see things with a new lens, a new understanding. Again, do I believe that World War II, am I sympathetic towards Pat Buchanan and things like, yes, absolutely. But I do still think World War II, it kind of had to happen at some point. My thing is the biggest mistake is we so fixated on Hitler that we just sort of, we handed half of Europe to someone who was much worse than Hitler. Stalin. I think it was a huge mistake to side with Russia in World War II. A huge mistake. And a lot of our current problems are due to that big mistake. Should never have happened. So anyways, so going back to, this whole America First thing, I just think America First, we've just lost the plot. We're just so fixated on no foreign wars, whatever. And we're just ignoring so many other aspects of this whole thing. Like I showed in that video, I think the oil aspect is key, and we can't allow foreign powers like Russia or China to control that oil. Just can't let that happen. That is crucial for our interests. You really want to let China to have dominance in the Middle East and therefore have dominance over some roughly 70% of the world's energy supply, resources, whatever. You really want to let that happen? You know what's going to do to the United States? So I look at this the same way I look at the Venezuela issue. I think Trump is playing the long game. This is about China. That's what this is really about. This is about Russia. That's what it's really about. But the problem is America First, they don't look past the immediacy of right here. They're looking at this and thinking they're being incredibly smart and brilliant. In reality, there's like this whole thing right here. And I kind of wish Trump would try to help people see that rather than just, I don't know what's the big deal with saying, we can't let other powers who are our potential enemies get any serious footing in the region. It's got to be by our rules, by our playbook. And for me, as America First, I'm all for that. Like I said, I think we should start making some hats, guys. I really think this is a great idea. Make empires great again. Let's make an American empire, and let's say make empires great again. I'm all for that. I'm on board with all that stuff. And that to me, again, America First, man. I think I'm more consistently America First than all the America First guys. And I just think that I like to think, I could be wrong, but I like to think that I'm just, the studies of history that I've done and I continue to do, I'm writing about a lot of this stuff right now. Hopefully I can have it posted sometime soon. Because I think right now, like, again, I can't get any of my America First friends to engage in any of this stuff. I've tried. I'm like, hey guys, come on, like, please try to convince me. I'm interested. Like, if you can convince me that this position I'm taking is wrong, I'll change my mind. But nobody's even trying. Like, nobody just wants to engage it, for whatever reason. And I just think, we just don't want to listen to each other. And just like, I see, like, they see the point that I'm making, but they're like, I just don't agree with that. It's just like, okay, well, that's not really a reason to dismiss it. It's just because you just don't like it, whatever. Fine, whatever. We're just gonna stick to foreign wars. I think that's a mistake. I think that's potentially fatal. And I think MAGA should just be upfront and just say, this is why we need to be doing this, guys. This is why this is really important, Anyways, I'm going too long here. I was gonna make another point, but I don't remember it. And like I said, I'm going too long. It's 30 minutes here of you listening to me do another one of my droning ons, whatever. And that's about it. So, well, let me just say this. I think about this. I think, what can I do? I'm still arguing with a bunch of Candace Owens stupid followers. Now I don't say that because I'm trying to be a meanie head. It's just like legitimately, how can you describe these people? Like so many of their comments on my last video about Candace Owens is an idiot. It's just like making fun of me for some reason. Oh, he's only got 57 subscribers. Oh, and like, I mean, it's just childish stuff that like can't actually engage anything that I actually said. It just shows the intellectual capabilities of these people to follow a woman who pronounces it blitzkrieg and all these other kind of words. That's the one that sticks in my head because I'm much more familiar with those areas than a lot of the other stuff. But it's just. But like a lot of them are saying things like I got my 7K, all that's just typical stuff. And I'm just thinking I could really use that 7K. It'd be really cool if I could actually have that, but I don't. I'm just a guy who's got. I'm in the double digits of subscribers on YouTube. Like nobody knows who I am. Why would anybody listen to me? Why are you listening to me? I wish I could get more attention to talk about this stuff because I think this is really important. But I can't really control that. I just leave it in the Lord's hands, who He's going to bring my way. He's going to stumble across my dronings on, and just hope that while you are listening to me, while I have your attention somehow, that I can just help provide perspective and just to think things through a little bit before we just kind of shoot from the hip. It's not as simple as we try to make things out to be. There's much more going on, that kind of stuff. And so what can I do? I think the best thing I can do is try to talk about a little bit of history, because it's what I love to talk about, scripture, and that's just really all I can do. And just pray for healing. The conservative movement has been shattered ever since Charlie died. It's just pretty much destroyed. And I don't know what that means for the future. I think if much of the current America First has their way, America is going to be in serious trouble. Because America First right now is being so incredibly naive. Just thinks that we can just pull away from everything, including the Middle East, and everything's going to be great and wonderful because we're saving money and American lives. And I think in the long run, it's going to cost us. And see, that's the problem. Like I said, nobody's thinking in the long run. We're all just thinking, we're just like, oh, now. I want my things now. Like little children, basically. Just not thinking in long terms, because I'm going in circles here, but because we're just average Americans, we're not in those positions of power. We don't make those decisions with the reality of so many other things going on. Because our normal decision making every single day doesn't affect the world. So that's how you and I think. And that's why it's naive. That's why it's just naive. So that's all I can really do. That's all I really have to say. So if you made it this far, thanks. If not, well, if you wouldn't be here. So for anybody who made it this far, thank you very much. Soli Deo Gloria. God bless. Continue building God's kingdom. That's the important part. I know I talk a lot about what's going on in the world, but in the end, God's kingdom is what's worth building. Build God's kingdom here. And with that, I'll talk to you all later. Bye.